So, what happens when you put two of the most recognizable figures in history in the same room? Today, we're going to dive into a really fascinating piece of source material that does exactly that. It's a fictional dialogue, an imagined conversation that asks some very, very modern questions. And it all kicks off with this single, really provocative question. The whole idea here isn't about religion or politics. Not really. It's using this imagined meeting as a way, a tool, to explore some deeply contrasting ideas about power, about morality, and leadership. Right away, this conversation sets up a major clash, but it's not actually about the two men themselves. It's about the worldviews, the archetypes they've been written to represent. And here it is, the core of the whole thing. On one side, you've got this archetype of the politician. His whole world revolves around external stuff, beating enemies, getting rich, and just winning. But on the other hand, you have the prophet, who's focused entirely on the internal, creating unity, showing compassion, and pushing for forgiveness. This is the central conflict we're going to see play out over and over. So the first big sticking point in this dialogue is the definition of peace itself. And wow, do these two characters come at it from completely opposite angles. From the politician's point of view, as it's written here, peace is something you get through strength, by defeating the bad guys. Peace only happens once you've crushed the people you've labeled as enemies. But then, the Jesus character comes back with a totally different take. In this view, peace isn't about beating some outside enemy at all. It's about building harmony and love on the inside. So the real question becomes, where does peace even come from? Is it from winning a fight or from finding unity? All right, from there, the conversation shifts to another classic debate: the role of money, and how you even define success. For the Trump character in this story, it's really simple. Greatness and wealth, they're basically the same thing. Success is something you can see, you can count, it's material. He says it right there. Being rich isn't just a sign of being great, it's what makes you great. And the response? Well, it's a direct shot back, using a really famous biblical passage. The idea here is that chasing wealth isn't a measure of success at all. It can actually be a huge spiritual problem, something that gets in the way of what's truly important. From personal wealth, the talk gets bigger, expanding to national identity. And specifically, it zeroes in on borders and immigration. And you can see the two philosophies laid out side by side here. And man, they couldn't be more different. One view says strength comes from physical division, a huge wall to keep threats out and protect the nation. The other argues that real strength is about spiritual unity, about tearing down the walls between people and remembering we all share one home. Okay, so this is where the dialogue really heats up. This is the climax, where it gets into the nuts and bolts of power, democracy, and the sheer impact of a leader's words. The Jesus character just lays it out there with a really pointed question. It explicitly compares the Trump character's rhetoric to Adolf Hitler's. The source material is clearly using this to force a confrontation about language that demonizes entire groups of people. And the response from the Trump character? It's a total shutdown of that idea. He completely rejects the comparison, says he's the best, and then flips it, blaming all the division on his opponents. So right after that pretty intense moment, the conversation takes another turn, moving to something related, the legitimacy of the whole democratic process. So the Trump character's view on the 2020 election is laid out with these key phrases you see here. The argument being made is pretty clear. If you lose, the system must be broken. It goes all the way to suggesting that, hey, maybe we shouldn't even have elections if they don't give us the right winner. And the counterpoint to all that is this pretty heavy warning about democracy itself. The caution here is that democracy is super fragile, and it can be broken from the inside when people start trading its principles for power, all fueled by fear. So how does a conversation like this possibly end? I mean, where do you go from there? Well, as you might guess, it doesn't end with a handshake. It ends with each side getting one last definitive word in. The Trump character wraps it up by restating his mission and then just ending the conversation with his famous catchphrase. It's an abrupt final stop. No common ground found. And the final line from the Jesus character is interesting. It's kind of this poignant, maybe even ironic sign-off. It doesn't fight back. It just reflects the Trump character's own words back at him, ending the whole thing on this really thoughtful, almost sad note. At the end of the day, this fictional dialogue isn't really about who won the argument. It's a thought experiment. The source material uses these two massive figures to hold up a mirror to our own world, and it really forces us to ask, what's the point of leadership? And how do the words our leaders choose to use shape everything? Not just policies, but the very way our society feels. The text doesn't give you an answer. It just leaves that question hanging there for us to think about. And that's the power of a really good conversation.